What up? What up? What up? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO legend and paranormal lore. Welcome back. Welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully, you guys are doing excellent and taking care of yourselves. So, today, we're going to talk about the very similar to reality movie that is Jupiter Ascending that I talked about a little bit in the last podcast, but we're going to go deeper into it and talk about how they really mimicked the alien species that we have knowledge of, as well as a lot of the storylines that are real in our world and that we're uncovering through these congressional hearings and through these whistleblowers. So this movie came out, I think it was 2014, and the basic premise of the movie is that a young woman discovers her destiny as an heiress of intergalactic nobility, okay? And she has to fight to protect Earth. She actually becomes owner of the Earth as well. So her name's Jupiter, that's why it's called Jupiter Ascending, and she comes to find out that humanity is just a small part in a major corporation, and the family Abraxas that's their name. They're called the House of Abraxas. It's basically like the Amazon of the universe. They own everything. They own Earth. They own Jupiter. They own Mars. They own Venus. They own all these different solar systems. And what they do is they spread seeds throughout all of these solar systems and planets. But what we don't find out until later is that they go and they harvest these planets. For what? Oh, did someone say adrenochrome? They produce a type of youth serum for the elites on other planets. That's what their corporation does. So the humans of any planet, Earth and all the others, are merely the product that they've been farming, right? We've always talked about the genetic farmer races. They're farming us for genetic material. Now, this goes along with what Bob Lazar always said, was that he got information, the most classified document he's ever worked with or ever been shown was a book. And inside that book, it stated that humans were containers. Of what? Of souls. Humans were containers. Maybe of genetic material. That's why they're always taking us and taking genetic material. Taking ovum, taking sperm, taking other, blood work or whatever. And they're trying to do the best with these recreated hybrids, and they're even showing them to the mothers. So, this movie was clearly written by somebody who has definite interest in UFO legend and lore, and alien legend and lore as well. So they genetically engineer not only themselves but also other elites into having a lifespan of 19,000 years. 19,000 years is what they reveal to Jupiter, who's only in her 20s, maybe 30, maybe young 30s. And what they can do is they can have a reincarnation of their spirit. And that's what they found, is that they not only can they keep their body young, but they can also transfer the spirit onto another body. And that other body just happened to be Jupiter's body. And so she didn't even know who she was until this family came down to get her. Now, this is what's really interesting, is that they can continue to go into this pool of the serum to make their bodies younger, but the genes, the genetic coding, always wants the body to die after a certain period. That's why they have to keep going back in. And the genetics eventually will run out. Now, can people live forever? No, they can't. That's why they're still working on these genetics. But forever seems to be 19,000 years, doesn't it? Now, what they also can do is they can also genetically engineer military hunters as well, and none other than a species of werewolf, half human hybrids, and that's exactly what Channing Tatum is. He's a half wolf, half werewolf, half human hybrid, a lycanthant. And lycanthants have certain powers as well, right? He's got like the pointy ears. He's got the, kind of a wolfish looking face to him, but he has, incredible strength, incredible speed. Now, if you like watching Gaia, Jason Rice is one of the whistleblowers that came out and stated he was part of the Mars 20 and Back program. He stated that they fought a werewolf-like species. This werewolf-like species battled them and was actually a part of a hierarchy of aliens. So the Draco reptilians actually had a hierarchy over these werewolves and sent them out to do their bidding. These Dracos are actually represented in the movie as well. That's what's so cool. If you really like the stuff that we talk about on the podcast, you watch the movie, you'll see a lot of the aliens that we talk about. That you'll see the Dracos, you'll see the Greys, you'll see the werewolf species, and they're all represented in there. And then you have a little bit of, exopolitics involved as well. You have different warring factions outside of Earth, right? And you have the ownership of all these planets playing out in the plot as well. It's really interesting. So, going back into the story, it's something to. It really puts your mind into their shoes and saying, okay, well, even Jupiter says, how can one person own an entire planet? And the fact is that how can one company basically own a humongous portion of the GDP in a country or the GDP of the world? Well, look at Amazon. Look at Elon Musk and all of his companies. Bezos and Musk own more money and more companies than most of the people, than all of the people on the planet. You think about that. If they wanted to build something off the planet and have their own company that created some serum that they could go survive in, you betcha they would do it. There's billionaires and millionaires even around the world that have hired crews to build underground bunkers. There's something that they know about that's going to happen. Whether it's a virus or whether it's eternal winter for a time period or whether it's a nuclear winter, they know something's going to happen. And so they're building these bunkers, and that they're basically, having different crews work on different parts of the bunker so nobody really knows everything, and that they're having them sign NDAs, and who knows, man, they might even be trying to take them out, trying to do some wet work so that nobody knows what's going on. But then again, that gets a little tricky. These millionaires and these billionaires, you can't trust them. So let's look at the Dracos in this movie for a second. The Dracos have wings in this movie. The Dracos are subservient to the House of Abraxas, which is actually run by, a quasi-human, I guess. So would the Dracos ever serve a human? I don't think so. That's where this story doesn't necessarily fit with what we understand as reality. With the Mars reptilians, the Mars Germans, and those kinds of things, how they work together, but they're not. The Dracos are definitely not subservient to the Germans. They actually killed a bunch of them during a business transaction. The Dracos killed a bunch of the Mars Germans in a transaction, and they kind of showed their power and their might, and that's how they control, through fear, fear and power. So, I do like this story. It really opens up the potential for corporations to own and control huge swaths of population by owning planets. And if we go back to the Trogdobogdians for a second, if you missed that podcast, well, you can listen to it. But the Trogdobogdians are this one of the most oldest and ancient species. They can live millions and millions of years, according to Randy Kramer on Gaia. And he's talked about, how he's met them and he's learned about them and talked to them a little bit. But basically, the main premise is that they have developed a ship around a star, a ship around a sun, and travel eternally. And you can imagine what the Troglodyteans could do if they wanted to turn bad. They could own planets, couldn't they? They could probably create planets. There's a lot of creator species out there too. So they could create planets. They can grab a planet, put it in their ship. If they can grab a sun, which is humongous, they can certainly grab a small little planet and take it on a travel and own it, right? So, yeah, wouldn't that be? Man, there's so much to think about when it comes to like ownership of planetoids. You remember in Men in Black, at the end of the movie, how the galaxy was this big and it was a marble and we were being played like, shooting marbles with aliens' hands, and the premise of the movie was don't underestimate the size of something and versus the power of it, and how the galaxy was swinging around on that cat's neck. Well, size is all relative. Space is all relative. So we may very well be owned by some other species or some other entity somewhere else. A lot of people don't think about that, but if you think about this movie and you think about how we could be owned by something, think about how we could actually be part of a larger system of a biosphere or biosystem. Meaning, could we simply be just another atom in a larger being? Blowing your mind, right? It's tough to think about. It's tough to accept because we're so egocentric and believe that everything revolves around us. But if you think about it, it's definitely relative, and it's definitely a possibility. If you think about this for a moment, if you look at a galaxy looks like a cell, and a galaxy is working within itself. It works and it spins on its own, and within itself it has little solar systems that work on their own, and little systems that work together to keep this thing cohesive. Now sometimes they crash and they split, and they break into other galaxies and they spin into each other. That's always been something that we've heard about since like 7th grade, is that the Milky Way will eventually spin into some other galaxy and become and absorb another galaxy, or be absorbed by another galaxy. Well, sometimes that's what happens with cancer cells, is that they have this malformation, and it ends up destroying itself, destroying its host, So we could definitely be part of a larger system. And being part of a larger system has its own inherent responsibilities and capabilities. But I think, in going back to this movie, I think it's definitely worth a shot. I don't want to ruin everything, so I don't want to tell you everything, obviously. But I think it's worth looking at, because in watching it, there's just so many things that ring true, like the eventuality and inevitability of us finding a serum that will allow certain of us to live many thousands more years than others of us, right? And eventually there will be a hierarchy of people that survive, because like all great empires, we will fall too, and there will be a mass depopulation at some point, whether it's an accident, whether it's nuclear, whether it's something else. But there will be a population that has this knowledge base that's been saved, and they'll be in it, and there'll be scientists that will be able to reproduce. And that's kind of what happens. And that's what they're talking about in this movie. They're talking about harvesting, because once a population grows to the point in which the planet can no longer support it, is when the House of Abraxas comes to harvest it. So they come down and they harvest enough of the population to service their corporation and to keep these planets running. Doesn't that sound like what's happening already here? Is that once an empire gets too big, Roman Empire, the Ming Dynasty, the Han Dynasty, all the Chinese empires, the the European empires, you have the African empires, Egypt, ancient Egypt. What happened to these peoples? They didn't just up and disappear. Well, maybe they did, because there's no sign of them. Just like they just up and disappear. Machu Picchu, these massive, very intelligent populations just up and disappear. Ancient Egypt, probably the most intelligent species that could create the most beautiful artwork and most scientific artwork. If indeed it was an alien, they would have been one of the most intelligent species by far, and they just up and disappear. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And there's been stuff that they found there that like Baghdad battery, has been found in multiple different locations. They found like what looks to be a cell phone, in these locations, with like cuneiform language on the buttons. I mean, just crazy stuff that resembles a Nokia. You guys have probably seen pictures of that. And you just have to wonder, if these species didn't just get too big for their britches, and all of a sudden the harvesters just came down to harvest, baby. And that's what they do. And maybe they come down and they harvest, and then they drop off these hybrids. There's been reports by abductees, they've been told by alien abductors that humans have been genetically manipulated and have had a full revolution of genetic manipulation 65 times. Meaning they've changed us 65 times. Think about that. So if they've done that, it would go along with the whole idea of harvesting, coming down, taking whatever energy they need, whether it's the Loosh energy for the Dracos or whether it's, the adrenochrome is the fear-based stuff that they need. So if they came down and started terrorizing the shit out of people, they'd be pumping some adrenochrome, and they could just squeeze us out like a ketchup bottle and take all the adrenochrome they want, man. Have like an orgy of adrenochrome, It's crazy to think about, but I mean, we saw it, we saw it in the Matrix. They liquefied the dead humans to feed them intravenously to the living babies, it's crazy shit. And that's just kind of sci-fi for you. So what do you think? I haven't necessarily painted an awesome picture. I don't know as if it's, let's pretend it's not true, but, in all reality, we know that everything is a commodity. Everything is bought and sold for a purpose and for power. And once your purpose is used up, the power is gone. So if we're going to overstay our bounds here, our invitation to this planet by going out of bounds on our population or killing the planet through chemical, plantation and that kind of thing, then they're going to come down and harvest, baby. They're gonna, what do they call it? Drill, baby, drill in Alaska? That's what they're going to do. They're going to harvest, baby, harvest. So I'll end it there. But you got to just remember those Georgia Guidestones. The Georgia Guidestones said, keep population under 500 million or something like that. And that's like only 5% of the population. So they'd have to harvest 95% of us. Well, sounds like they could do that. They could do that, and they have done it 65 times. All right, guys. That's all I got. I mean, I could probably go on and on, but I like to keep these short, sweet, and to the point, so that you guys can chew on them, think about them, and feel free to leave a comment about them. Please, just like the last podcast, please share. The only way that we can make inroads is for you to share, comment, and that just helps the podcast grow. So thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on board. I'm getting reports in of good things, of hearing from you guys. It's hard out there, for a podcaster to keep making it. It's not like we can't grow without your help. You know, we're not advertising out here, so we can't grow without a word of mouth. And that's you guys. You guys are the street team. So you guys bring it out and share it with anybody you can. Share it with any groups you can, and that will definitely help. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves, guys. Physically, spiritually, emotionally. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams. And as always, continue to question the universe. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves. The Lockdown Universe is out. Peace.